Well, since the beginning of the uprising in Egypt, now about 2 weeks old, the pundits that we've talked to on the Grandy Group have pretty much all said that the future of Egypt lies in the hands of the military. And because of that, we thought it would be a good time to talk to an expert about that, and that gentleman is Charles CULLY STIMSON. He is currently at the Heritage Foundation, the Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. But prior to joining Heritage, he was Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary for Detainee Affairs. And by the way, Cully will be joining us for our Domestic Terrorism Seminar 101, which you can get the details of at WMAL.com/forum. Cully, good morning.
Hey, Fred. Hey, Brian.
Let me go right to the point about the Egyptian military. Obviously, the military supposedly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, has had a lot of training from the United States. Does that make them decidedly pro-Western in this particular dust-up? Can we count on them?
Well, it has so far. $40 million buys you some loyalty. $40 billion that we've given them since around 1978. But unlike some of this so-called crop of Egyptologist experts, I'm not one. But I am a military guy, and I think that our military officers who have spent time with Egyptian military officers enjoy a fairly good relationship. And we have these military-to-military bilateral exchanges. There are military officers from Egypt in the Pentagon at various duty stations at our training commands. And so I think it's an open question as to what will influence the military at the highest level of their leadership going forward during the transitional period. I think that's the question.
And having said that, I mean, I would assume that their senior military leaders, the guys, and I don't know if we're talking about Tantawi or the other fellow that's mentioned in the news whose name escapes me right at the moment, but if these guys have come up through a system of essentially cooperation and collaboration with the United States, I would assume they would also have a vested interest in maintaining a status quo vis-a-vis Israel, the Suez Canal, and stability in the Middle East.
One would think that's true, Fred, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way it ends up being. However, they've exercised tremendous restraint for a variety of reasons so far. If the new leadership coming in pushes them in a different direction, then they have to choose between either following the new leadership or breaking away from it, which they haven't done in the past. So I'm an optimist, but I'm also realist here,
Okay.
and I think that we have to see which way they're pulled. There is mandatory military duty in Egypt, and so all males serve in the military for some short period of time.
And that means all walks of life go in there too, all different kinds of ideologies.
That's exactly right, Brian. And so when you ask, are there radical Islamic people, terrorists potentially in the Egyptian military?
Right.
Well, sure. By definition, males have to join the military. A little factoid that's somewhat interesting is we didn't have many Egyptians at Guantanamo Bay as captures. I mean, the big populations were the Saudis, the Yemenis, and the Afghans, and so we had very few Egyptians.
Okay, that's good to know. Listen, Donald Rumsfeld was on ABC last night and said, was talking about weapons of mass destruction, said there was an intelligence failure. And we were talking about it just a few minutes ago, whether or not the intelligence is any better today, because even the president said that he was essentially disappointed with the intelligence community over what happened in Egypt. Where do you think it stands today, the intelligence community?
Well, I have the highest respect for folks who work in this field. I've worked with them in the past. But it's not math. It's not 2 + 2 = 4. And gathered through a wide variety of fields, cobbled together that I think if you had hindsight, you could say, well, that makes perfect sense. Oh, I can see that. But at the time, when you're dealing in real-time information, it's hard to figure out exactly what's credible. And, of course, spies by definition sometimes don't tell the truth when we're using human intelligence in these various countries.
I know that when you were at the Defense Department, one of your, perhaps your principal duty was overseeing detainees such as the ones at Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Having now seen the result of the Ahmed Galani trial, what do you think the future of Guantanamo Bay is? Will it continue to sustain as a detention center? Will it be shut down? And does it serve a purpose being where it is?
It's not going to close during the next 2 years of this administration simply because this president chose not to spend one iota of political capital to fulfill his promise the second day he was in office when he ordered it to be shut down. And so it was the Democratic Congress that refused the funding to close it. It was the Democratic Congress that refused to give him the legislation necessary to bring detainees to the United States. So the Republicans certainly are going to play ball with him on that. And the American people right now, as far as I can tell, don't want importing terrorists into the United States. And so it serves a purpose in the sense that it is in this gray limbo zone where it's lawful. People who have been there say, gosh, it's a terrific detention facility. I think it's on the downward trajectory towards extinction, but that could be years down the road. And in fact, if we got in a situation, think about this, Brian and Fred, if we got in a situation where we all of a sudden needed to capture large numbers of detainees outside of that theater of war in Afghanistan, where are you going to put them? This administration doesn't have a plan for that. They're hoping that won't happen. But Gitmo would be a logical choice as the default mechanism for a place to go.
Now, Fred says his house in Bethesda would be fine for that.
Well, just the basement. I certainly wouldn't want them upstairs.
Charles, thank you very much for your time.
Cully, thanks a lot.
We appreciate your time.
Looking forward to next week. Thanks a lot.
We are too. We appreciate you being a part of that.
Yep.
And we're going to do that on Thursday. Fred, we have some information for people if they want to get involved in the forum, if they want to watch it, and go to our website and reserve a spot right now.
Yeah, and I can't encourage you enough to do that. It's WMAL.com/forum. You can get all of the details and reserve some space for yourself, because I think seats will go fast.